Welcome to the FEI Icons podcast. Nobody becomes an icon by staying comfortable. These are the moments that stretch them and shape them. Real stories, real strategies, real leadership. The titles are public. The turning points were private. Until now.
I'm Heather Cole, finance leader, executive coach, and proud member of FEI. My goal is simple. Take the stories behind the titles and turn them into lessons you can use. If you've ever looked successful on paper but felt the weight of, am I doing this right? You're in the right place. Stories, strategy, leadership. Let's get into it. Believe in yourself and don't let negative voices influence how you feel. From center stage to the front lines, a CFO on a life-saving mission. I'm Heather Cole, and today's guest is a finance leader whose work doesn't just manage risk, it reduces it in the real world. Amber Kinney built an unconventional career from performing arts to nonprofit finance and made a conscious pivot into life-saving missions, including Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and now her next chapter as the CFO of the American College of Emergency Physicians. In this episode, Amber shares leadership lessons every future leader needs, like how to take the leap even when you feel over your head, or why the right network can change everything, and how to silence the distractors, because time will pass either way. Amber, welcome. Take us back. What set your journey in motion?
Thank you, Heather. Yes, I have not exactly taken maybe the most traditional career path in finance and accounting. I've focused on the nonprofit space since 1995. After just a few years in working for for-profit entities, I went to an organization that was very involved in the performing arts. My family background was one where there was lots of arts involvement. And I actually went to the performing arts high school in Dallas and had many family members who were part of that organization. So the first nonprofit that I worked for 16 years was the local Broadway presenting entity in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they also were the Dallas venue for the performing arts resident companies, so the ballet, the opera, etc. And I wet my feet in the nonprofit arena working for that organization. We also managed venues on behalf of the city of Dallas. I then went on to other cultural organizations as the nonprofit financial leader, including a deck park was built over a highway and it bridged downtown and uptown in Dallas. It's been a very successful project. I was there during the construction phase, and then I went to work for the new performing arts venue complex in downtown Dallas. It's now known as the AT&T Performing Arts Center. And after spending about 20 years in performing and cultural arts, I made a conscious choice that I wanted to work for entities that were more central to the life-saving and life improvement missions. And I went on to work for an organization for 7 years that served remote and isolated Native American tribes. And it's a national organization, but it's based here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I'm called Partnership with Native Americans. I was then recruited to MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, where I have been for the past 3.5 years. And starting next week, I will be the incoming CFO for the American College of Emergency Physicians. So all three of these last organizations that I worked for over the past 10 years and going into the future, there's a trajectory of life-saving missions and meeting the most important needs that people have in their lives.
I love your story. And I got to say, I can't help but get the Fame theme song out of my head right now.
It was like that.
What I have to ask, was it like that? Like,
Yes, we loved that movie. It was about that time, that I was there, and definitely we've had a lot of performers go on to some measure of fame out of that school, and it has produced many Grammy award-winning artists. It's an interesting place, right in the downtown area of Dallas.
What I'm noticing about it, so you come out of this amazing school of art, which just going to call it out, most CFOs do not have that backgrounds. We tend to have these brains that are not as creative as, or at least on the outside, we don't appear to be. So I love the fact that you kind of leaned into that passion, right? And you were able to kind of grow into that area. And then taking that leap, you said something that I really thought was interesting. You said it was a conscious choice
Yes.
to make the move. Maybe you can help me understand some of that because just celebrated the new year when we're recording this. And that conscious choice thing is really an important subject, I think, to get people to living their authentic lives, their true lives. Maybe you can what was the impetus behind that? Or maybe you can share a little bit around that.
Sure. I would also like to add, before I answer that question, that I left home very early and I didn't follow the traditional finance and accounting educational path either. I became a single mom pretty young and I worked my way through school. And I had people that I worked for who nurtured me and mentored me and said, "You can do this job," and taught me a lot about finance and accounting. And then I got my undergraduate degree in business and I got my MBA as well. So after spending 20 years in performing arts management, that really was part of my journey in life because of my family background and having been involved in the arts. My faith and my value system is such that I wanted to meet those human needs and say really the life-saving piece of it. The arts are beautiful because they nurture the soul, your spirit. If you hear a beautiful performance, sometimes you get those chill bumps, and they certainly make a community and a place to live a better place to live. And I think that Dallas has done a good job of it used to be downtown was deserted at night and no one really went there. Or, the place where they were presenting performing arts was somewhere you wouldn't want to be at night after the crowds left. But it's changed and it's gotten better. And that's because people had bold visions in DFW to take risks and get things done. And there were, of course, the donors and supporters who did that. But I didn't always agree with the artistic choices of what was being presented. And as I grew older and kind of had my own values and beliefs, I wanted that to be reflected in the career choices that I was making.
If you were to look back right now and I'm starting to get this real great sense of your journey. What challenge do you think shaped you most as a leader?
Certainly, that aspect of working my way through challenges in life made me stronger and better as a person. And I think that having a family, having children gave me also aspirations of around if I'm going to achieve something, I want to do well. I want to do well for my family. I want to do well for myself. And I didn't necessarily have the pedigree that some people do entering the career path. So I made a conscious effort. I understood that I was in over my head, but I never let that deter me because I believe, when you're entry level in whatever career path you're on, you are in over your head. But we have so many resources available to us in the world today to learn. And if you don't know how to do something, it can be learned. And if you have the belief in yourself and the confidence, you can achieve things, even if you don't know everything. I've had many times when I've gone into a new role and there were significant learning gaps or challenges that I was facing. And, you sink or swim. So the not being afraid to take a risk. And even now at this stage in my life, when I don't feel like I'm in over my head, I'm still learning new things and taking on a new role in a very different sort of entity. There's going to be a learning curve, but that is interesting and fun challenge, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so, I talk a lot about imposter syndrome. I do webinars on imposter syndrome because especially as a woman in finance and tech, especially at my age, there was a lot of that, right?
Sure.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you now really embrace that what some people call syndrome, that like uncertain feeling like I'm over my head. Now, people respond in two different ways, right? They some people back down and some people lean in. And from your story, you're a lean in kind of girl. Would you agree?
Yes, I suppose so. I think that grit is one of those traits that I've embraced. And as far as the imposter syndrome, at a certain point, I realized that almost everyone has it. And you're not alone.
I think everyone has it. The people that say they don't have it even more because they're afraid to admit that they have it.
I've had people that have reported to me, and they've, should I take this risk? Should I attempt this role, or should I go on and further my education? The time is going to pass either way. And either you do or you don't. But, I've always encouraged them to take those next steps and challenges. And I've seen them go on to become CFOs themselves. I've certainly been in the past, I've seen a lot of change around women in positions of leadership in my years. And years ago, you could have been the only woman in the room. And that's not necessarily true anymore.
Yeah, I think there's been a big shift, at least I've seen it, where when I was coming up, we thought there was one chair at the table for a woman. And it was kind of scrappy, got a little dicey, right? You were like, "I'm gonna get that chair." And now what I really sense is that we have changed enough that we're kind of reaching down and pulling the younger generations, especially the women, up and saying, "Come, there's plenty. Let's just bring more chairs," right? I love that. To do that though, mentoring obviously or having advisors has been very important. It sounds like you've obviously mentored other people as they're coming up. Is there someone in your life that's been a big role model that's helped you along the way?
I've given this considerable thought. At one point, I probably would have said, no, not really. But then I kind of reflected on it, and there were many. There were many people who gave me those opportunities. For example, one of my bosses very early on, even before I entered the nonprofit space, was the controller. And it was a smaller company for profit. He went on to take a role elsewhere, and he came in evenings, weekends. He said, "You can do this job," and taught me. And then I had another boss, a female. The company was being acquired. It was actually a defense manufacturing company. So early, early, early in my career. And she said, "I'm never afraid of my staff excelling." And she put me in a position where, even though the company was being acquired, she moved me over to accounting because the entire executive suite was being let go. But that gave me exposure in a different area. And also, I had that job a bit longer than some of the rest of the team. And there were others. FEI's been an important part of my career journey, and certainly had some people there who encouraged me, and a lot of learning opportunities there. And I've had other people along the way who spoke into my life and believed in me, and gave me that confidence to try new things and opportunities to try them.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Cross Country Consulting. At Cross Country Consulting, we're committed to empowering women leaders in finance to drive meaningful change and innovation. By harnessing responsible, human-centered AI solutions, we enable finance executives to automate complex processes, unlock predictive insights, and enhance decision-making with confidence. Our approach prioritizes security, audit readiness, and strategic alignment, ensuring that these leaders can address today's challenges and seize tomorrow's opportunities. Join the movement to transform the face of financial leadership and technology. Discover how Cross Country Consulting supports women in finance to accelerate innovation and lead with purpose. To learn more, visit crosscountry-consulting.com.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of times we do struggle to think of just one mentor or one, when it's really, you've surrounded your whole life by people that just give that little boost of encouragement, maybe when you need it most. Sometimes when we start getting stressed or change is so immense that we're like, oh, I don't know. And then all of a sudden you just have that one person saying, you got this. And it means all the difference in the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was one more that I'd like to mention. I've only been in transition where I didn't have the next role lined up once, and that was 2008, during the financial crisis when so many experienced that. I was part of a career group in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that it was actually located in a church setting, but they believe it was handled as a whole ministry. But one of the things that they did was assign a mentor, a retired executive who could mentor me on the path to finding my next role, which was critical at that time because I have been fortunate over the years of my career, never having been in that position before or since. And that was so encouraging because when you're in transition, it affects your whole life, not just the job aspect of your life, but your family life. You can become discouraged. And so during that phase, I had that mentor who was specifically assigned to me. And that's been important. On the other side of that, I've been a mentor through FEI. I'm actually the vice chair of the mentoring committee on the board of FEI, and I've been part of the mentoring program there for several years now, and I love doing that.
Yeah, I love you're really sharing with people that experience. There are a lot of people, even right now, that are in transition, that are terrified with what AI is doing. It's exciting and new, but also terrifying, and people think it's going to replace their jobs and so forth. What maybe a couple words of wisdom would you give anyone that's in transition right now that might help them in this journey?
I would say that, there are a lot of opportunities through those types of career groups, through FEI or through other channels. If you're in a city that has those kind of groups, sometimes people say, why would I want to go there where other people are also looking for work? It's because it's really about networking. And that has been really important over the course of my career is not waiting until you're in transition to build those networks, but you probably already have the networks. And I've seen people through LinkedIn really make true connections there, being courageous enough to say, I'm in transition. Will you promote me? Will you ask your friends to be on the lookout for opportunities? And as a leader, a CFO, I'm connected to a lot of recruiters and search firms as well on the hiring side, but then those same people can be a resource to someone when they're in transition. So even though it may seem like sometimes they're salespeople, and they are, that's what they do, that business development can work both ways. So it's important to respect those contacts and build your networks. There's a lot of opportunities for doing that are free through CPA firms. They have these learning sessions, full day and half day seminars that you can go to in person make connections there. Those are some of the ways to make connections through networking, but that's always been an important aspect of keeping those networks going.
You said a couple nuggets that I want to make sure we back up and highlight, shine a light on. Is that one, FEI, I absolutely agree. Networking is fabulous, but it's kind of what you put into it, right?
True.
You got to show up. But there are so many people that wait. They're like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to go to the chapter meetings and so forth. And then they're in transition and suddenly they come to the chapter meetings. Like, yes, that's gonna help you, but not to the level that you're talking about where you're actively doing it all the time, right? Like, keep in contact, show up even if you're busy, because those networks are gonna help you solve problems faster, everything, right? You also said something that kinda slid by, and it was, I think, really important, and that is to ask. Do you agree that people, for some reason, think they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna reach out to Heather or Amber because, I don't wanna impose." What kind of words of encouragement would you give them about overcoming that fear of asking for help?
Absolutely. I am not the most outgoing person who likes to work the room. So I'm more comfortable with building relationships in smaller groups or one on one. And I think that's true of a lot of people that may be in the finance and accounting field. And we're not necessarily the most extroverted people. So I think that everyone at some point in their career has been in that place where they need to ask for help or for resources. And it's something you give and it's also something you can receive. Being on the receiving end, maybe less comfortable, but we've all been there. And I think that sense of community is really important. If you can build a peer group ahead of time, it'll put you in a better spot. And you said something that I believe is very critical in business, and that's that sometimes somebody else has the solution for the problem that you're dealing with, whatever it is. I've participated in technology groups, and working with technology has been an important part of my job. Those learning events are another opportunity to build connections because they're often marketing to CFOs and controllers. And so participating in those technology conferences can be important as well. There are many different forms of networking, but building those peer groups ahead of time, it's a safe place to field questions and problems with your counterparts in other organizations where you may not be comfortable in doing that in your own workplace.
Yeah, I have people reach out to me all the time, other FEI members from different chapters that are moving to Florida or random people that find me on LinkedIn. I feel so like proud when they ask me for help. I don't know about you, but I feel really good helping people. So I'm just going to throw it out there. If you're afraid to ask for help, you're actually depriving the other person of feeling really good.
I think that's true. It's a blessing to be of assistance to someone else.
It makes it's like, "Yay, I helped someone today." So, I wanna take a moment and kind of turn back about your new career path because it sounds like you have an exciting new opportunity. You're literally starting next week at a new position. Maybe you wanna share a little bit about that and what your vision is there.
Oh, that's interesting. I was not looking. I got approached quite some time ago by a recruiter about this role. It took a number of months to go through that process. And I was happy in my current position that ends in just a couple of days. And I loved the people that I was working with. Great team, great mission. But when I started considering, where I am in my career journey, who knows how many more opportunities I'll get. So when it was presented to me, it was certainly a good new opportunity for me from a personal perspective. And even though I continue to support the mission of the organization that I have been with, I think that this is a mission that is also critical. Healthcare is such a big topic for our country and for everyone. Everyone at some point or another in their life, really from the beginning to the end, needs healthcare. And there are many challenges in the healthcare space. And I think that in particular with emergency room physicians, and they're at the forefront. They're at the forefront of a lot of the issues that are compounded in our healthcare system. It's going to be a learning curve for me. I have not worked for a membership driven organization previously. I've been able to participate in the advocacy side of the work, working with MAD, which that was exciting, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the role. But I also like building out infrastructure and putting nonprofit organizations in a position to be more automated, more efficient, and to support the work of the people that are doing the life-saving mission of the organization. And nonprofits don't always do a great job of investing because they are so concerned with getting the funds to the mission work that they don't always invest in technology and in infrastructure. So it's a recurring theme in my career of building that out. And I do think I will have the opportunity to do that. I've already been speaking with them about the system changes and the exciting things that are on the path there. And it's really what I enjoy doing.
Well, it sounds like you have a really exciting new adventure ahead of you. I want to do one personal reflection question. What do you know now that you wish you knew 10 years ago?
So even though I've had a lot of encouragers in my life, there have been a few detractors along the way. And I think that I would say I would not let those voices have so much power in my head. When you take risks and you're doing big things, sometimes people don't always agree with those decisions. And so there is some truth to it's lonely at the top, even though I'm not a CEO. A CFO is also in that position. And I look back and I'm proud of the decisions that I've made and the journey and the path that I've taken. I think that it's really just believe in yourself and don't let negative voices influence how you feel.
I call those negative voices the trolls. And when the trolls show up, it means you're challenging yourself, you're growing, you're stepping to that next level. And sometimes they're people you work with, sometimes, right? Sometimes they're board members. But when the trolls show up, I'm like, game on. I'm pushing the boundaries. So I love your personal reflection because it is kind of that reminder that you're in control. If I look at our conversation here, what the highlights that I'm hearing from you is networking is something you have to constantly be doing. And it's a two-way street, right? It's going out and meeting people, but it's mentoring and helping others along the way, helping them connect with people they need to meet. And I think that's such a valuable lesson that as finance professionals, you're right, we tend to be a little introverted and we have to step out to do that. So I love that you're sharing that. I love your career path, like going from arts and then into nonprofit, and you're literally saving lives. You go from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, where you save lives, and now you're going to be in the forefront of helping emergency rooms become more efficient and save even more lives. Like, I have a bucket list item to save a life someday, and you're doing it every day. So I think that is amazing. Now, in conclusion, I always like to ask you if there's one thing that we didn't share that you'd love people to know about you, or like one thing you nugget you'd want to share that maybe I missed along the way.
I think perhaps it's just that, finding balance in life. And I used to believe that I had to work harder than everyone else just to stay even. And I've learned that that's not necessarily true because it will have a negative consequence on your health and maybe on your family. So take time to find balance, do self-care. One thing that I learned in MAD was even if you're not in a direct victim service role, there can be trauma associated with the work that is being done. And it's called vicarious trauma. But the counterpart of that is that you do self care and recognize that there is an impact. And I like that that can be out in the open because it's not that way in every organization. And I've really appreciated that. And I do volunteer work in that space as well, as I'm the board chair of an organization that rescues youth who have been involved in sex trafficking. And again, that's a victim serving organization. And I've learned a lot from the staff there who are very deliberate about taking care of themselves. So life itself can be hard, even if you don't work in that space. There's a lot going on in the world. So nurturing your faith, your family, and your health, and taking care of yourself, and recognizing when you need to step away and do some self-care.
What a great New Year's initiative for all of us. More self-care and give others the kind of blessing, the grace to say it's okay to do it for yourself too.
Yeah.
I think that's just a fabulous message. And Amber, I can't thank you enough. I look forward to seeing you at some FEI events. Hopefully we'll see at the summit, or I guess they're changing the name to leadership this year. But I really appreciated our time together. And thank you for being such an inspiration. Your charity work, working with the youth that have been trafficked, to saving lives. I think a lot of people can look at you and say, I want to be like that. So thank you so much, Amber. And we appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's been a pleasure.
Amber, thank you. I loved your journey. Listeners, here's a couple takeaways. Choose your mission on purpose. Keep learning through the in over your head moments, and never let negative voices drown out the leader you're becoming. So my challenge to you is choose something you learned today and lean into it this week. We're all going to step up our game. I'm Heather Cole, and thanks for listening to the FEI Icons podcast. Until next time.
Your career doesn't grow in isolation. It grows in rooms, relationships, and real conversations. So here's your next move. Expand your network through the FEI network, because the right connections increase your net worth and your impact. Plug into the programs, the people, and the community, and keep showing up until opportunity recognizes your name.